Hi, I'm Nitasha Buldeo and welcome to this well-being webinar. Today we are discussing synchronicity and how we can use this powerful practice to unlock our unconscious. But what is synchronicity? Now, synchronicity is described as meaningful coincidence. The word synchronicity was first used by Carl Jung. However, the concept of synchronicity has existed since ancient times in both the East and the West. However, in order to understand synchronicity and how to use this powerful practice to enhance our lives, we need to understand the unconscious. Now, in Western medicine, Sigmund Freud was the first to describe the unconscious. We talked about Freud in the ego webinar. And if you want to understand ego, then I do suggest you go back and watch that. However, back to the unconscious. Freud talked about 3 levels of consciousness: the conscious, the pre-conscious, and the unconscious. The conscious refers to all the things that you are aware of. If I asked you to think about your day, what is conscious is all the things that you can recall. If I asked you if you liked ice cream, you can answer yes or no. Conscious therefore refers to all the things that you know and can readily respond to. However, if I asked you if you liked bubblegum ice cream, you may take a moment to remember a time that you tasted bubblegum ice cream. And then you may respond yes or no. Or maybe you can't remember what bubblegum ice cream tasted like. Or maybe you remember that you've never tasted bubblegum ice cream. When we have to recall information to bring it to consciousness, that's your pre-conscious working. Pre-conscious refers to all the things that you can bring into consciousness, but it requires some effort. However, the pre-conscious can also act as a buffer, allowing information into consciousness or not. Now, we've all had experience of our pre-conscious at work. When we are trying to learn something new, what we aim to do is commit to memory this new information so that we can recall it when we need to. But most of us have had the experience of trying to recall a particular bit of information, say in an exam, and we just can't bring it to consciousness. We know that we studied that information, yet we just can't remember it in that moment. This is when we can't access our pre-conscious. Now, this happens in everyday situations too. When we try to remember the name of that song or that restaurant, we know that we know it, and yet we just can't bring it to conscious awareness. In fact, this happens so often that we have a phrase for this feeling: tip of my tongue, but back of my mind. But why does this happen? Why can't we recall some bits of information at particular moments? Freud put this down to the unconscious. According to Freud, the unconscious includes all our repressed feelings, hidden memories and emotions that we find too embarrassing, painful, or shameful to face consciously. Now, the unconscious also contains all our hidden desires, according to Freud. Freud claimed that these bits of hidden information get stored up in this enormous reservoir that makes up our unconscious mind. And according to Freud, in order to identify the roots of psychological distress or limiting behavior, one had to access this unconscious reservoir. And Freud used techniques like dream analysis and free association to bring the unconscious to light. but these have fallen out of favor in modern times. Now, just to recap on the ego, to understand how ego maps onto Freud's understanding of conscious and unconscious. Freud described the ego as the I, the conscious part of us that navigates between the unconscious id, short for libido, and the superego, which is societal or cultural rules. So the ego was the conscious bit that navigated between the unconscious, id or libido, and societal rules. Now, the unconscious, now Freud's understanding of the unconscious, what he called the id or libido, is what caused the rift between Freud and his student Jung. As Freud developed his theory, his concept of id or libido changed to refer solely to sexual desire. And when we understand Freud's life and backstory, we come to understand how his theory may have been influenced by his personal experience and his unconscious. Jung, his student, did not agree that libido was purely sexual energy. Jung proposed that libido was a generalized psychic energy. And Jung's ideas were influenced by Eastern texts. We know that Jung was engaging in Eastern philosophy and had read German translations of Indian and Chinese texts. Jung has written various commentaries about these texts. And in these Indian and Chinese texts, two important concepts were discussed: chi and prana. Now, these terms have become ambiguous in modern usage. However, in the classical texts, they refer not just to breath, but to psychic energy. In fact, the Indian classical yoga and tantra texts made the most comprehensive study of this psychic energy or bioelectric energy. They claim that this energy powers our bodies and minds. Now, these ancient texts describe 5 different types of prana based on how this bioenergy moves throughout the body. This prana or energy moves through the body, whether you are conscious of it or not. And this flow of energy controls our behaviors, actions, moods, metabolism. In fact, this unconscious psychic energy or prana controls everything about us. And if we can understand how this energy works within us, then we can have more awareness and self-control. And this is the secret to yoga and tantra. Now back to synchronicity and meaningful coincidence. What Jung and the Eastern texts allude to is that there is no such thing as coincidence. They suggest that we call something a coincidence because we can't logically find a link between cause and effect. And we can't find the link with our conscious minds because synchronicity is our unconscious mind at play. Hence, synchronicity or meaningful coincidence helps you understand the unconscious processes in your brain. Now, these coincidences can present themselves as dreams or physical events that gives us meaning, understanding, or epiphanies. There are 2 very famous examples of these synchronicities that resulted in epiphanies. The first is the chemist Kekule, who was studying the chemical structure of benzene but getting nowhere. Then one night, Kekule dreamt of a snake eating its own tail. To him, this suggested a ring and gave Kekule the understanding or the idea that benzene was a ring. Hence, he found the solution to the chemical structure of benzene from his dream. Now, the second example is personally meaningful. I am recording this webinar in Ortigia Island, that's in Syracuse, Sicily. Now, Syracuse is the birthplace of the famous ancient Greek polymath, Archimedes. You would have heard the story of Archimedes' Eureka moment. See, Archimedes was given the task to evaluate how much of gold was in the king's crown. At that stage, clever metalsmiths learned how to mix metals and sell off cheaper alloys as gold. So Archimedes had to figure out how much gold and how much cheaper metal was in the king's crown. And he spent much time contemplating this and had not found a solution. Then one day, while taking a bath, Archimedes dropped his soap into the bath water and watched it float up. And in that moment, the idea of weight and displacement came to him. Archimedes figured out how to evaluate the crown. And as the story goes, Archimedes got out of his bath and ran naked through the streets of Syracuse, screaming, "Eureka!" Now, was me being in Syracuse when I was thinking about a webinar on synchronicity coincidence or meaningful? For me, it became meaningful because synchronicity is something that's important in my life. But it's also something that I find challenging to talk about. Yet being here in Syracuse and surrounded by the Archimedes iconography gave me the confidence to talk about synchronicity. Now, I know that critics of this concept, the rationalists out there, will say that the whole idea of synchronicity is irrational. And I want to say to them, yes, I agree with you. It is irrational, but that is what makes it more important. You see, as humans, we like to think that we are logical and rational, but the truth is, we are not. We respond irrationally to symbols and patterns, emotions, memories, and biases. And this irrational process underlies most of our decisions. Only once a decision is made, we then use reason to justify our decisions. Now, there are many research studies that show how humans recognize and respond to patterns unconsciously. In these studies, participants are asked to sort out cards, and these cards are stacked in randomized patterns. And what is consistently seen is that participants start to sort out these cards correctly, even though they don't know that they are doing it. So if you ask the participants if they knew the pattern or they had a strategy, they will tell you that they don't, and they won't be lying. Now, this is because our unconscious takes in information, sorts it out, and responds to the information, whether this information is useful or not. And it does that long before this information reaches our conscious awareness. In my personal life, and even working with clients, synchronicity is an important practice. Synchronicity helps me recognize the patterns that dominate mine and my clients' unconscious. And these patterns can often give me such precise information that I have people ask me, "How did you know that?" I am not psychic. I just follow the pattern, and what may seem as coincidence becomes meaningful. Now, this is synchronicity, and you too can learn how to use it. There are 5 steps to learning to use synchronicity. Step number 1 is learning to let go of the ego or the conscious I. Now, we discussed this in the ego webinar. You see, as long as you allow the conscious ego to dominate, you will miss vital information that is coming in from your unconscious. The second step is to learn to appreciate every moment. And the only way to appreciate every moment is to practice gratitude. Now, when we are truly grateful, we appreciate everything in life. And if we are not grateful, then we are constantly judging. This is good, this is bad, this is useful, this is not useful. And you can choose to live a life of judgment. But believe me, everything will feel more challenging. As soon as you learn to be grateful, you start to attract more experiences to be grateful for. Practices to help increase gratitude in your life is discussed in our gratitude webinar. You see, steps number 1 and number 2 is preparation for step number 3. Step number 3 is practicing your craft and living your life with an open mind and gratitude. And as soon as you start living and working with openness and gratitude, more opportunities present themselves and patterns start to emerge. Now, the best way to bring these patterns to conscious awareness is step number 4, and that is to keep a journal. All you need to do is journal at regular intervals. Now, I journal twice daily, morning and just before bed, and it just takes a few minutes at each sitting. And there's not much to journaling. All it means is writing down things that come up. In fact, I think the secret to journaling is not overthinking it. For me, journaling is a way of emptying my mind. Once it's scribbled into my journal, I no longer need to think about it. And what you will notice is that after journaling for a period of time, you start to notice patterns or symbols emerge. And step number 5 means taking time to understand what these symbols mean to you. Now, the key to synchronicity is that you find personal meaning for the patterns or symbols that emerge. And when you understand the meaning, you start to understand your unconscious and how it works. And then you begin to unlock your full potential. You unlock your full potential because you begin to work with your entire mind, conscious and unconscious, and your potential becomes limitless. With regards to my personal practice, in order to wire my body and mind into good habits that enable me to function optimally, I practice yoga. And the reason I am pedantic about breath and mind training in my yoga practice is because this combination enables me to enter into an egoless flow state. And in this state, I have access to the potential of my unconscious. I am effortlessly creative, expansive, and productive, and I am open to the synchronicity of life. As I've previously mentioned, yoga is not the only way to enter into the state. Yoga may be the most systematic way, but it's not the only way. Most ancient ritual practices are aiming for a similar outcome. In our next webinar, we talk to Dr. Charmaine Sonnex about pagan rituals and how they help enter into the egoless state to enable transformation and personal growth. Now, you may be wondering why a skincare brand is promoting well-being webinars. Why is a skincare brand covering topics that focuses on personal development and transformation? Shouldn't we focus on beauty? You see, at Organic Apoteke, we know that healthy skin is beautiful skin. We also know that beauty comes from harmony, inner and outer. And we know that your skin is the interface between your inner and outer world. Therefore, we create products that help your skin function better. This makes your life beautiful inside and out. And our goal at Organic Apoteke is to help you live your best life. Thank you for joining me on my well-being journey. If you like this webinar, then click the button. If you want to receive notifications about future webinars, then please do subscribe to this channel. And please do leave comments, feedback, and suggestions. I love hearing from you. So thank you and goodbye.